After my husband drowned, his memory reverted to 5 years ago. Back then, we didn't even know each other. He harbored a deep love for a deceitful girl who had sold him into a brothel. It was I who saved him. Song Yan refused to accept this. He was deeply devoted to her and made a bet with me if he could find an old item of hers, I would have to sign the papers and let him leave. On the first day, he found nothing at all. It was simply ridiculous. On the second day, he still came back empty-handed. My smile grew wider until the third day when he dug up a wooden box from beneath the tree. Inside lay a portrait of the girl. Song Yan held the portrait and asked me,
"Why aren't you laughing? Why did you stop laughing? Are you just naturally cold-faced?"
Song Yan had a serious look on his face. Having said that, he unrolled the scroll again and said softly,
"Her name is Shen Wan. She is the love of my life."
I stared at the beauty in the painting. She had bright eyes and white teeth, with faint dimples when she smiled. She was indeed exquisite. Shen Wan, I had met her before. It was 5 years ago, outside the Fengyue brothel. She and the owner were arguing over Song Yan's price. Shen Wan praised Song Yan's fine looks, saying he was worth at least 10 taels. The owner argued back, saying that since Song Yan was so easily sold by her, he must not be very bright and was probably a fool, so he was only worth 5 taels. While the two of them were arguing, I secretly untied his ropes and then quickly ran away with him. That was the first time, and also the only time, I ever bested Shen Wan. But I had a very deep impression of this girl. Beautiful and ruthless. She was even more stunning than in the painting. Having looked at the painting enough, he carefully rolled it back up.
"Even if you destroyed all of Awan's things, my love for her is so deep that I must have kept some items you don't know about. This portrait is the first."
Song Yan said this with a face full of provocation. I didn't make a sound, but my hands had already silently clenched into fists. I felt that being a widow wouldn't be so bad after all. After all, the reason I was willing to make this bet with him was because we had once truly loved each other, with no secrets between us. I knew all of his miserable past, and he also understood that I had once loved someone I couldn't love. Because of this, when Song Yan proposed to me, to show his sincerity, he had right in front of me burned everything related to Shen Wan. That was why I dared to make this bet with him. I betted that in this home, there would absolutely not be a single trace of Shen Wan left. I was also betting on Song Yan's love for me, but it seemed I had lost the bet. I twitched the corners of my mouth, but I couldn't force a smile no matter what.
"Zhang Yijun, you might as well smile. Zhang Yijun looks much better when she smiles."
Song Yan stroked his chin, carefully studying my face, and added,
"But no matter how you smile, it is not as moving as my Awan's smile."
Song Yan was a very vengeful man. Over the past 2 days, I had rummaged through chests and cupboards, even going up to the roof to lift tiles, and had even drained the pond completely dry. After tossing and turning for a long time, I found nothing, and instead got dust all over my face. He was mad with anger at the time, so I couldn't help but laugh. He then declared that he would never lose.
"And you certainly won't have the last laugh either."
Then, he dug 3 feet into the ground, in an uninhabited, abandoned courtyard, beneath that dead peach tree. He dug up a wooden box containing a portrait of Shen Wan. Ha 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 ha. He had won the bet. Watching the smile fade from my lips, bit by bit, Song Yan looked extremely pleased with himself. Aside from holding grudges, he also had an incredibly strong desire to win. So in this game of wits, he racked his brains just to win. My sister-in-law, who had come to check Song Yan's pulse, witnessed this scene and turned pale with fright.
"Sister-in-law, my brother's brain was damaged in the crash. Please bear with him."
His brain was indeed damaged. 3 days ago, just because I mentioned wanting to eat lotus seed pods, Song Yan went out alone in a boat to pick them. But the small boat capsized, and his head struck a hard rock at the bottom of the lake, leaving him with a huge bump and even causing him to lose his memory. If that were all, it would be fine. But unfortunately, his memory was stuck 5 years in the past. Back then, we weren't even married yet, and he was still in love with that deceitful girl named Shen Wan. The young and impetuous Song Yan had turned the whole household upside down for her sake. So no matter how his parents tried to persuade him, he refused to believe that 5 years ago, Shen Wan had feigned an elopement, swindled him out of all his money, and finding him a burden, even tried to sell him into a brothel. Song Yan sneered.
"Father, mother, and my sister all hate Awan, so they deliberately made up these lies to make me give up on her. As for you, Zhang Yijun, you must be the wife my parents forced upon me."
Thinking himself incredibly clever, he branded me a fraud in just a few words. Someone who stole his heart, and now wanted to steal his body. Seeing him so obstinate, my sister-in-law was furious. She pointed at him and scolded.
"Your brain really is broken. You talk nothing but nonsense all day."
"You brat, stop talking nonsense."
"Me? Talking nonsense? Who in the capital doesn't know that our Song family has a fool who was sold by a woman and still helped her count the money?"
Song Yi didn't spare his feelings at all. After all, this matter had caused a huge uproar back then, and everyone knew about it. Song Yan still refused to believe it.
Maybe you all set this up on purpose, just to make me give up on her.
My sister-in-law clutched her chest.
Sister-in-law, why don't you just divorce my brother? I don't want such a stupid brother.
Despite her words, I had been married into the Song family for 3 years. Not only were Song Yan and I deeply in love, but my parents-in-law also treated me wonderfully. They regarded me as their own daughter, always giving me the best of everything. Even my sister-in-law had become a close friend with whom I could share anything. Our family was harmonious and warm. If Song Yan hadn't injured his head and lost his memories, my life would have been extremely pleasant. So just that old painting alone, which was buried 5 years ago, before he even met me, perhaps really couldn't prove anything. I tried to comfort myself, but when night fell, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to forget the affectionate look in Song Yan's eyes when he looked at the portrait. It was eyesore and hateful. In the end, unable to suppress the turmoil in my heart, I grabbed my pillow and threw it to the floor. A soft pillow shouldn't have torn, but as fate would have it, on the floor lay a piece of broken porcelain that hadn't been cleaned up. The soft pillow scraped against it, and a large tear was sliced open, revealing the dried flowers and herbs inside. I am a light sleeper, and always had trouble sleeping, so Song Yan personally picked and dried these mandarin orange peels and cassia seeds. He then consulted the embroidery maids in the manor, and spent over 10 days sewing an exquisite pillow for me with his own hands. He put the dried orange peels and cassia seeds inside, saying they would soothe my mind and help me sleep. During those few days, his 10 fingers were covered in needle pricks, red and swollen. Thinking of this, my heart softened a little. I got out of bed to pick up the pillow, only to see a yellow object fall out. I picked it up and looked at it. It was a protective amulet. Beside it, there was small writing, "May my wife, Yijun, be healthy, clear-minded, and free from illness and misfortune." This is Song Yan's handwriting. I recognize it. I didn't know when he had prayed for it. Clearly, he had never believed in Buddha. Looking at the damaged pillow and this peace amulet, my heart was in extreme conflict. 3 years as husband and wife. He has always cherished me like a treasure. How could he betray me? Perhaps he really had just forgotten. Putting myself in his shoes, I had also written many letters expressing my feelings, and fearing my parents would find out, I had hidden those letters all over my family home. Last year, when Song Yan accompanied me to visit my parents, he even found one in my old bedroom, and was terribly jealous for several days because of it. No one is perfect. Once I saw the light, I stopped dwelling on it. Instead, I picked up the damaged pillow, took up a needle and thread, and began to sew it back together, stitch by stitch. Without this pillow, it really was hard for me to fall asleep, but my needlework was terrible. I struggled to sew the pillow for several hours, only finishing it as dawn broke. Just as I was about to close my eyes, Song Yan barged right in, without a care. Although he had found Shen Wan's alley yesterday, I told him it didn't count. Song Yan was furious, and accused me of breaking my promise, but he had no other choice. The divorce requires my consent. So, early this morning, he came into my room to continue rummaging through Shen Wan's belongings. I didn't want to pay him any attention at first, but he was making too much noise, and handling everything so roughly. He was either bumping into tables and chairs, or knocking over the screen. I have always been a light sleeper, and though I tried to endure it on the bed with my eyes closed, I ultimately could not bear it any longer. Pulling back the bed curtains, I began to mock him sarcastically. "Didn't you say we aren't a real couple? And warned me not to lust after your body. Yet look at you. I am still sleeping in bed, not even fully dressed, and you just barge right in like this. Aren't you afraid of ruining my reputation?" Seeing me suddenly speak, Song Yan, who was rummaging through the wardrobe, was startled. He hadn't realized at all that the garment he had just picked up was my undergarment. When he finally realized, his eyes widened as if he were holding a hot potato, and he quickly threw it aside. Having lost 5 years of his memories, Song Yan seemed particularly young and naive. I couldn't help but tease him. "This bodice was specially commissioned by you for me. You said red suited me best, and was your absolute favorite. Behind closed doors, we were a loving couple. Sharing some intimate words occasionally was nothing to be embarrassed about." Yet, Song Yan acted like an innocent boy. His face flushed bright red, not daring to look at the red bodice he had thrown on the floor.
You, Zhang Yijun. Stop talking nonsense. Put some clothes on first.
Song Yan stammered. He hurriedly grabbed a dress from the wardrobe at random, then closed his eyes and threw it onto the bed. I hooked the strap of the dress with my finger, looked at it closely, and felt even more amused. "Song Yan, are you sure you want me to wear this out?" Confused, Song Yan opened his eyes and looked over. At first glance, this silk dress didn't seem any different from an ordinary one. However, the hem was extremely short, and the neckline was cut incredibly low.
Zhang Yijun, how could you have such an outrageous piece of clothing?
Once he saw it clearly, Song Yan abruptly raised his hands and covered his eyes. "Outrageous. You spent 100 days learning from the manor's embroiderers. just to make this dress for me with your own hands. When I refused to wear it, you even knelt on the ground and begged me. There used to be several outfits like this, except every time I wore them, in the end, they would always end up torn to shreds by Song Yan. Now, only this last one remained.
Nonsense. How could I possibly kneel on the ground and beg you to wear something like this? I am a proper gentleman. Even if my parents forced me to marry you, I imagine we would have treated each other with mutual respect at most. How could I possibly play along with you like this?
Song Yan couldn't go on.
Are you saying I've lost my memory?
I am your wife. I've been taking care of you all these years. Don't you remember anything at all? After his commotion, I was completely wide awake. I simply got up to make myself presentable. Seeing that I had changed my clothes, Song Yan finally took his hands away from his eyes. Then, he continued to rummage around. After searching the wardrobe, he went to dig through the chests, and even searched the bed thoroughly. However, not only did he fail to find anything related to Shen Wan, instead, he ended up finding his own privately hidden collection of erotic art albums, which he had tucked away. With just one glance, he was so startled that he threw the albums right back, looking like a startled bird. After that, he made his way over to the dressing table, muttering to himself,
Awan loves beautiful things the most. I must have made plenty of jewelry for her. Let me see if there is any here.
After all, he is my husband, and his head is injured again. I should show him more patience and understanding. I took a deep breath, watching coldly as he rummaged around the dressing table, finally finding an ivory comb.
I knew there would be something belonging to Shen Wan.
He smiled, picking up the comb and holding it in his hand, looking it over from left to right, before finally narrowing his eyes in satisfaction.
That is right. This comb was made by me, Song Yan. My Song family has a rule. If we meet the one we love, we must hand carve an ivory comb to give to her. I have studied comb making with my father since I was a child. This craftsmanship clearly came from my own hands.
Yes, you did make this comb. I smiled and nodded. Song Yan raised an eyebrow.
See, I told you so. I knew I would find traces of Awan again.
Then would you like to take another look at the engraving on the handle? I kindly offered a reminder. Song Yan looked puzzled, then lowered his head to look. On the handle, in tiny script, the character Jun was engraved. Zhang Yijun, my name. I pointed to myself. When Song Yan and I pledged our lives to each other, he had hand-carved this ivory comb for me. I cherished it deeply and used it every single day to brush my hair. After clearly seeing that tiny character,
Impossible. I don't even like you, so how could I have made a comb for Zhang Yijun? This must be a character Zhang Yijun secretly carved on her own.
Seeing that he refused to admit his mistake, I kindly added, you should be more familiar with this handwriting than I am. Song Yan's handwriting was indeed difficult for anyone to imitate. He was naturally very familiar with it, so he froze, holding the comb in a daze. His eyes filled with confusion, as if doubting his own memories for the very first time. I struck while the iron was hot. Aside from this comb, all the jewelry in the vanity box was handpicked by you for me. You would also draw my eyebrows every morning. Do you want to try it once? I handed the eyebrow powder in my hand to Song Yan. He took it hesitantly. After all, in his mind, he had never learned how to draw eyebrows, and drawing eyebrows was clearly an extremely intimate act between husband and wife. If he could really do it well, then it would prove I wasn't lying, and that we are indeed a loving couple. So after hesitating for a moment, Song Yan wanted to give it a try. Despite losing his memory, Song Yan's hand was surprisingly steady as he drew my eyebrows. When he finished, I looked left and right in the bronze mirror, extremely satisfied. I couldn't help but praise, your skill is still the best. It is much better than that of my maids. Song Yan didn't say a word, only staring motionlessly at the eyebrow brush in his hand, and then suddenly threw it away.
Absolutely impossible. I would never have a change of heart.
Song Yan seemed to have a bit of a breakdown. After throwing away the eyebrow brush, he turned and rushed outside, but accidentally bumped into a shelf on the side. There was a porcelain vase on the cabinet. The vase wobbled precariously from the impact, and finally fell to the ground, shattering into a pile of white porcelain shards. From the ruins, an ivory comb actually fell out. It was almost identical to the one on my dressing table. The only difference was that the handle was engraved with the character Wan. Song Yan quickly scooped up the comb.
Back then, I made this ivory comb for Awan.
But before I could give it to her,
She vanished without a trace.
after he finished speaking, he reached out and carefully traced every single carve on the comb, his eyes brimming with even more tenderness.
I really didn't expect it would actually be hidden inside this porcelain vase.
Song Yan then looked at me proudly.
Zhang Yijun, according to our bet, you have nothing left to say this time, do you?
I didn't say a word, but quietly stared at the ivory comb in his hand. I indeed had not expected this fool to love Shen Wan to such an extent, but thinking about it, it was only natural. If not for this, how could he have almost been tricked by her into a male brothel? But before I could speak, Song Yan's mother, supported by a maid, walked inside. She was followed by several maidservants, who held trays in their hands. On one tray sat a bowl of soup.
Yijun, I heard from the servants that you haven't been sleeping well these past few days, so I had them brew some soothing tonic soup.
She spoke with a smile on her face, until her gaze fell upon the comb in Song Yan's hand. Mother Song quickly stepped forward and snatched the ivory comb from his hand. After seeing the small character carved on the handle clearly, Mother Song's expression turned into a sigh.
Song Yan, where did you dig this thing up from? Didn't I hide it away back then?
I stepped forward to support Mother Song and nudged the broken porcelain pieces on the floor with my foot. Mother, Ayan accidentally broke a porcelain vase just now, and this ivory comb fell out of it. Hearing this, Mother Song immediately turned to look at me.
Yijun, back then, Ayan made this ivory comb just to talk back to me. I forbade him from associating with that woman, so he deliberately carved this comb right in front of my face. I was furious, so I threw it into a random vase, pretending it was lost when Ayan couldn't find it, so I could use it as an excuse to say his relationship with that woman was over.
Mother Song explained very earnestly, for fear that I might become suspicious because of this. The Song family's estate was vast, with countless pieces of porcelain in the storehouse. This porcelain vase that hid the ivory comb had somehow been moved to my room at some point. It seemed to be quite a coincidence.
Mother, how could you do such a thing? Ah Wan and I are truly in love.
You foolish boy, just for that woman. You have completely disgraced our Song family. It wasn't easy for you to finally come to your senses later and find me such a good daughter-in-law. Now you're acting crazy day after day. If you drive Yijun away, I will definitely skin you alive.
Mother Song had always been gentle and loving. She rarely lost her temper like this. Not only was I somewhat surprised, but even Song Yan was shocked, with the very clear handprint still on his face. He looked extremely aggrieved.
Mother, I only want to spend my life with the one I love. What did I do wrong?
Yijun is the one you love. Back then, you personally begged me, imploring me to send gifts to the Zhang family. You said you loved Yijun deeply and wanted to spend a lifetime with her. You even said you would never take a concubine in this lifetime and would be entirely devoted to her.
Impossible. The one I love is Shen Wan.
Song Yan still refused to believe it. He looked at me, his eyes filled with complex emotions, yet he still clung stubbornly to his own memory.
Mother, you must be deceiving me.
He fled in embarrassment. As he walked out of the room, he even nearly tripped. Song Yan was probably still unable to accept it. He ran out of the Song estate, his whereabouts unknown for a time. My parents-in-law refused to let anyone go look for him, saying only,
They only said that as a grown man. Even if he had lost his memory, he wouldn't encounter any real danger in the capital. If he really is lost, we'll just pretend we never had this son. It is still better than having our hearts ache from his anger every day.
Song Yan did not return, but my parents came over instead. They had doted on me since childhood. Upon learning that Song Yan had fallen into the water, they had even come to visit in person. Only, Song Yan had not yet regained consciousness then, although he woke up later. He had lost his memory, completely forgetting the little details of our life together. Fearing my parents would worry, I had kept the matter quiet. But in the end, it couldn't be hidden. I didn't know who leaked the news, but my parents rushed to visit. The moment she saw me, my mother held me and wept.
My poor daughter. With great difficulty, you chose a fine husband. Yet before you could live a peaceful life for a few years, your husband lost his memory. What are you going to do from now on?
My mother cried so bitterly that my own eyes couldn't help but turn red. My father also kept sighing beside us.
Yijun, I also heard you made a wager with Song Yan. If you lose, you will part ways. But have you thought about it? Once a woman is divorced, there will surely be no shortage of gossip from the neighbors in the future.
Hearing this, my mother couldn't help but glare at my father.
Who dares to say my daughter is not good? Our daughter is well behaved and obedient. Everyone knows that. Even if she gets a divorce and returns home, never to marry again for the rest of her life, we can still afford to support her.
My father quickly smiled apologetically.
Haha. When did I ever say I was unwilling to support our daughter? It is just that this world has always been harsh on women. No matter the reason, once divorced, she is always prone to being criticized. I'm just afraid she won't be able to bear it.
I knew my father was worried about me. According to the laws of the imperial court, if a husband and wife divorce, they are free to remarry. Men are usually not affected in any way, but it is different for women. No matter what the reason is, even if the husband commits murder and the wife wants to sever ties and return home, outsiders will still say she abandoned him in times of trouble and has terrible character. In the future, among the neighbors, the gossip and rumors alone would be enough to drown her. Father, mother, please don't worry. Even if Song Yan and I really separate, and outsiders gossip about it, I won't be sad or distressed because of it, because I did nothing wrong. So why should I feel guilty? It is Song Yan who has lost his mind, insisting on divorcing me like a fool, just to go after another woman. If anyone is at fault, it is him. So I am not afraid. No matter how much outsiders gossip, I can bear it. If all else fails, I will take the fight to their door. Those busybodies who spread nonsense will inevitably find themselves cornered and beaten up in the middle of the night. Seeing my calm expression, father finally breathed a sigh of relief.
As long as you are not afraid of others. Slander. If you truly want to leave him, your mother and I will support you.
That is right. Our Zhang family can easily afford to support our own daughter.
After saying this, mother suddenly took my hand and led me to a corner, she whispered.
On our way to the Song Manor. Guess who I saw on the street?
Mother spoke in a secretive manner, which made me very curious. Who? I quickly asked. Mother's expression was complicated. She looked at me, and once again, a look of tender affection appeared in her eyes. After a long pause, mother finally spoke that name.
Lu Xiuyuan.
Hearing this name again, I still felt somewhat dazed. Even earlier on, he was called Zhang Yijun, brother Xiuyuan. My parents only had one daughter, me, in their lifetime. Needless to say, they doted on me completely. But since there was no male heir in our family, the clan elders always had their eyes on our family estate. They felt that since I was a girl and would eventually marry out, it would be better to divide up our family business early on. I had several uncles who had 7 sons among them. At first, they merely tried to pressure my parents into adopting one of them to bring honor to our line in the future. But how could my parents not see through their scheme? If we really adopted one of them, they would inevitably swallow up our family estate step by step. Once my parents passed away, the adopted son would return to his original branch. Not only would they take over our estate, but they would also very likely turn against me. Gold, silver, land, and shops always bring out the worst malice in people. To protect me, and as luck would have it, a close friend of my father's was set up by his rivals. Before he died, he wrote a letter to my father, saying he had an orphan son left in the world, and begged my parents to raise him, to protect him, and also fearing he would be hunted down by his father's enemies. My parents decided to change his surname.
Quiet down, everyone.
So this is that illegitimate son? I didn't expect he would actually return to the family to claim his ancestry.
He is the son born to my father's mistress, now returning to the family. His name is Zhang Yijun.
But behind closed doors, my parents did not keep this a secret from me. I knew his true background. So, although we grew up together, we were as close as siblings. But after all, we were not related by blood. Zhang Yijun had a gentle nature and was extremely intelligent from childhood to adulthood. His academic performance was always excellent. On the martial arts field, his arrows never missed their mark. He wielded a long spear exceptionally well, and he even became the youngest top scholar in both civil and military imperial exams. For a time, his glory was boundless. Father said Zhang Yijun had inherited his true legacy. Though not his biological son, he was better than one, but no one knew that he and I, throughout the years of being together, day after day, had developed feelings that went beyond those of siblings. Not only was he accomplished in both civil and military arts, but his looks were also exceptionally handsome, rare in the capital. Before he even turned 20, matchmakers had already worn down our threshold, but every single time, he declined. Father did not understand the reason.
Xiuyuan, what is the meaning of this?
Zhang Yijun did not dare to tell father the truth. After all, we were on the same family registry, making us siblings in the eyes of the law. If father found out, he would inevitably fly into a rage. Although father spoiled me greatly, when it came to marriage, I could set my heart on any man, except for Zhang Yijun. Once word got out, the Zhang family's century-old reputation would be ruined. But in the end, father and mother still found out about this. As expected, they were furious. Father made him and me kneel in the ancestral hall, then brought out the family genealogy for us to see, saying with earnest concern,
Xiuyuan is already on our Zhang family registry. Even if he is not my biological son, he is still your rightful elder brother. Yijun, how could you fall in love with your own brother?
Having said that, he stared at Zhang Yijun again.
For the past dozen years, I have always treated you as my own son. Yijun is your real sister. Do you understand?
Father sighed
And reached out to touch his own graying hair. Tonight, you two will kneel here. Kneel for the whole night. Tomorrow, tell me whether you want to be brother and sister or a husband and wife whom the world cannot tolerate.
Social norms and etiquette stood right before us. That night, we talked about many things, from interesting anecdotes of our youth to our respective ambitions and ideals after growing up. Until dawn, he helped me stand up together, and then spoke gently.
Yijun, I love you, but our parents' kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. We cannot make them sad.
At that moment, I understood Zhang Yijun's choice. He chose to be my brother. In this way, the reputation of the Zhang family could be preserved, and our parents would not lose sleep over it. To be honest, this was the ending I had expected. Our parents treated us very well, so we really couldn't do something like this to bring shame upon them. If, for my sake, he had ignored everything and put our parents in a difficult position, then he wouldn't be the young Master Zhang, whom everyone in the capital respected. So, I did not resent him, because I had made the same decision as him. stepping out of this door. From then on, he and I would only be siblings. Since I had given up hope, I had to look forward. So when I met Song Yan and became close friends with whom he could share everything, I began to fall for him. Fortunately, Song Yan, who had completely given up on Shen Wan, also liked me. Our feelings were mutual. After he learned of my feelings, he begged his parents to come to propose marriage, saying he wanted to marry me as his wife. I remember that day. Zhang Yijun's face looked very grim, but he still didn't say anything. He only warned Song Yan.
If you ever mistreat Yijun in the future, I will never let you off.
Later on, Song Yan and I got married. He still treated me incredibly well, even though he knew I had once loved Zhang Yijun. Or rather, even to this day, Zhang Yijun has always held a place in my heart, and Song Yan was willing to accept that.
Not being able to let go of someone and still caring about them is because both you and he are truly wonderful people. A lifetime is so long. One is bound to meet a few people they care about. Good people are always hard to forget. This is very normal, but as long as you are by my side now, as my wife, that is enough.
But every time Zhang Yijun was mentioned, Song Yan would still get a little jealous, until Zhang Yijun suddenly announced he was going to the border. At that time, Song Yan and I had only been married for 3 months. Ignoring our parents' protests, Zhang Yijun insisted on joining the army at the border. Later, he even sent a letter saying he wanted to reclaim his ancestral roots and change his surname back to Lu, becoming Lu Xiuyuan of the Lu family. Father was absolutely furious, feeling he had raised an ungrateful ingrate. To this day, Father cannot bear to hear the name Lu Xiuyuan. Otherwise, he will surely fume with rage. Isn't he at the border? Why would he be in the capital? My voice was extremely soft, and I couldn't quite describe the feeling in my heart. Just hearing this name again still left me somewhat dazed. Mother shook her head.
I'm not too sure either. It is just that when the carriage passed by Zhuxian Tavern, I felt a bit stifled, so I lifted the curtain to get some fresh air. To my surprise, I actually saw Xiuyuan at the entrance of Zhuxian Tavern. Highs. Although I was surprised, I ultimately didn't want to make your father angry, so I didn't call out to him. All these years Xiuyuan has been fighting at the border. Even though your father said he would never care about him again, he still couldn't help but ask around about him through others. I also overheard a thing or two, saying that he is now a general.
Seeing father walking toward us, mother quickly lowered her voice and said one last thing.
Xiuyuan has now returned to his ancestral clan. He is no longer a member of the Zhang family. If you really divorce Song Yan, it might not be impossible for you and Xiuyuan to rekindle your old flame.
What are you two talking about?
Father walked over, his eyes searching. Mother ignored him, only glancing at the sky outside the window.
After all, it is not proper for us to stay too long at the Song household. If you have made up your mind and really want a divorce, your father and I will come to the Song household again to personally take you back.
With that, mother pressed the back of my hand as a hint, then looked at father again.
It is getting late. We should head back too.
Father nodded, looked at me with concern again, and likewise gave a few instructions.
You are at home by yourself. Take good care of yourself.
I personally saw my parents onto their carriage, not until the carriage had gone far and was completely out of sight did I turn around to enter the manor. But Song Yan returned home at this moment. He had a smile on his face, with a faint scent of alcohol on him. The moment he saw me, he couldn't help but babble.
Today, I originally wanted to go to Zhuxian Tavern to drown my sorrows. I never expected to meet a kindred spirit there. I chatted with him a lot, and we even made plans to drink together next time. He couldn't help but ramble upon seeing me.
Zhuxian Tavern again. I couldn't help but frown, so I casually asked, did that person leave a name? Song Yan nodded.
He said his name is Lu Xiuyuan.
Yan, listen to mother.
This comb was carved by Song Yan for Shen Wan before he ever knew me, so he could only grumble with frustration, and then continued to search the house for traces of Shen Wan.
Although I married you, the one I love in my heart has always been a Wan. Over these past few years at home, I must have hidden some of her belongings. Just give me a little more time, and I will definitely find them.
You cannot go back on your word. Song Yan was very earnest when he said this, yet he was completely oblivious to how deeply hurtful his words actually sounded. If he truly, after marrying me, still kept Shen Wan's belongings, I certainly would not hesitate. I would quickly sign the divorce papers and cut ties with him once and for all. But indeed, no more of Shen Wan's belongings could be found in the manor. Song Yan was somewhat dejected. Seeing this, Mother Song forced him to accompany me out for a stroll, just to clear his head and perhaps mend the affection between husband and wife. Although Song Yan was unwilling, his old mother's beatings did indeed hurt, so he could only nod in agreement. He then had the carriage prepared and accompanied me to go shopping. But the marketplace in the capital was far too bustling. Before the carriage could go very far, the dense crowd blocked the street completely. We had no choice but to have the carriage park in a quiet spot and proceed on foot.
Zhang Yijun, no matter what, you are my wife in name. I naturally will not mistreat you.
After Song Yan finished speaking, he led me to a jewelry shop and placed a gold ingot on the counter.
Although I cannot give you my affection, to make up for it, I can give you endless gold, silver treasures, and fine silks.
I glared at him in annoyance. Fool. Then I turned and walked out of the shop. Song Yan quickly caught up with me, saying as he walked,
If you don't like jewelry, how about we look at some fabrics and have a few new outfits made?
His sudden attentiveness was indeed a bit unusual. I couldn't help but ask, what is it you want from me? Did someone say something to you? There is no need to hide it from me. A flash of embarrassment crossed Song Yan's eyes. He shook his head like a rattle.
No, no.
He quickly pointed to a fabric shop nearby and pulled me inside.
Zhang Yijun, let's pick out some fabrics.
As soon as he stepped inside, the shop owner hurried over to greet him, his face full of obsequious smiles, trying hard to flatter him.
Young Master Song.
Song Yan stared at him, frowning slightly.
You know me.
The shop owner nodded, repeatedly.
Of course, last year. You ordered a wedding gown from our shop. You said it was for your bride's wedding, and that we must use the finest fabric in the world, and even adorn it with Eastern pearls. Our small shop worked tirelessly for a whole year for this, and we only finished the wedding gown a few days ago. We were planning to send someone to your estate to invite you, but we didn't expect you to come in person.
Listening to the shop owner's words, Song Yan was initially a bit confused, but then he seemed to recall something. He quickly asked the shop owner to bring out the wedding gown, not forgetting to ask,
Then did I ever tell you who this wedding gown was meant for?
The shop owner glanced at me, lowered his head, and coughed dryly twice before slowly uttering that name.
Shen Wan.
Upon hearing this name, Song Yan's eyes lit up instantly. Then he turned to look at me, filled with joy.
Zhang Yijun. I was still having a wedding dress made for Shen Wan last year. It is clear that she has always been the only one in my heart. What else do you have to say this time?
This is the finest wedding dress in our shop.
I stared at the wedding dress the shop owner ordered to be presented, looking at it closely several times. Song Yan, do you really want a divorce from me that badly?
I just want to be with the one I love.
Song Yan did not dare to look at me. He hung his head, looking rather uneasy, as if he felt he had wronged me, appearing very uneasy.
Zhang Yijun, I lost 5 years of my memory, and I truly cannot remember you. I don't know how much of what my parents and sister said is true or false, but 5 years ago, they indeed tried every possible way to separate me from Awan. I don't know if marrying you was out of true love, or if I was forced by my parents. At least at this very moment, I only remember my lover from 5 years ago.
Hais, I am also a bit tired. Otherwise, he will always yearn for Shen Wan, and will inevitably do things to betray me in the future. Every word he said was like a sharp knife, stabbing deeply into my heart. Since that is the case, Ayan, I will grant your wish and set you free.
For some reason, even though I got the divorce papers I wanted so badly, I couldn't bring myself to feel happy at all.
To this, I did not say a single word and simply turned to walk outside. But outside the door, I saw Lu Xiuyuan, who had already been waiting for a long time. At Zuixian restaurant, Lu Xiuyuan ordered a large table of my favorite dishes.
Yijun, we haven't seen each other for years. You've grown much thinner.
His gaze was gentle, and his eyes held a smile as he looked at me. He was still the good brother in my memory, so I couldn't help but speak up. Brother, you've grown much thinner too. Hearing my words, the curve of Lu Xiuyuan's lips faded slightly.
I have voluntarily requested to remove my name from the Zhang family registry. Now I am Lu Xiuyuan. I am no longer your brother.
I see. So father is very angry with you. Lu Xiuyuan lowered his eyes. His voice was low and soft.
It is I who have let father down, but I will repay his kindness.
To this, I didn't say much, but changed the subject instead. Song Yan has completely forgotten me now, only treating me as a wife forced upon him by his parents. So he certainly wouldn't take the initiative to mention taking me to buy clothes and jewelry. I paused, and then said, Lu Xiuyuan, you planned everything that happened today, didn't you? Lu Xiuyuan stopped smiling entirely. He stared at me, his expression still gentle, but with an added touch of persistence.
Yijun, we are the ones who were childhood sweethearts.
Huh, so what?
Ha 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 ha. I originally thought I could truly just treat myself as your brother and see you get married, but when you actually married Songyan, I regretted it every day and couldn't sleep at night, so I fled the capital. I went to fight in the war, to win military glory. I couldn't be your husband, but I could become your backer. I proposed to leave the Zhang family and reclaim my original surname, thinking that if one day Songyan treated you poorly, I could return to the capital and marry you in a proper and honorable way. Huh. Haze, but you two were so deeply in love. I thought I had no hope in this lifetime. I never expected him to lose his memory. Yijin, no one knows you better than I do. No matter how much you believe in Song Yan's love for you, if he cannot recover his memory, he will always have another woman in his heart. He will speak of his love for her in front of you every day, and even trample you into the dust. He will humiliate you. He will bring that woman home, either as a favored concubine or an equal wife. But no matter which one it is, you will absolutely not be able to tolerate it.
So you schemed against Song Yan, making him bring me to this fabric shop to see that so-called wedding gown, forcing me to give up hope. From the moment I saw that wedding gown clearly, I knew that a wedding gown with such intricate and exquisite craftsmanship could absolutely not be completed without 3 to 5 years, not to mention those massive Eastern pearls on the gown. More importantly, the pattern of this wedding gown was exactly the same as the one I told Lu Xiuyuan I fancied back then. It looked identical. So, this was what Lu Xiuyuan had prepared for me back then.
My Yijun is still as clever as ever.
Faced with my words, Lu Xiuyuan did not make any excuses. He nodded readily, his gaze filled with obsessive affection.
But I only gave you a little push to help you make up your mind. Isn't that right?
Lu Xiuyuan truly was the person who understood me best. He knew the darkest, most selfish side of my heart. He knew I had always been hesitant and undecided regarding Song Yan. It was true that I loved Song Yan, but he had lost his memory, and there was no telling when he would recover it. What if he never recovered it for the rest of his life? What should I do then? Was I to let another woman live in his heart forever? No, I couldn't bear it. I could be like that, but he couldn't. I was just that shameless. Lu Xiuyuan sighed again. He looked at me and said,
Yijun, since your wager with Song Yan is over, why not make a wager with me?
Wager on what?
Wager on whether I can persuade father and mother to marry you to me.
Absolutely impossible. Mother might soften her heart, but father will absolutely never agree. Lu Xiuyuan chuckled softly. He emphasized again.
Then wager with me just this once. All right.
I originally thought it was a game he was bound to lose, but when he accompanied me back to the Zhang family home, before father could even start to make things difficult, he fell to his knees with a thud and said in a sincere tone,
Father, mother, allow me to marry into your family, all right?
With just this single sentence, father, who would usually fly into a rage the moment he saw Lu Xiuyuan, instantly froze on the spot. Father could hardly believe it.
Xiuyuan, do you know what you are saying?
In this world, men were favored. Moreover, after Lu Xiuyuan returned from the battlefield, he was a commander personally appointed by the emperor. Even if he wanted to marry a princess, he would be fully qualified. Yet he was willing to marry into the Zhang family as a resident son-in-law.
Xiuyuan, have you really thought this through?
Mother's voice was also trembling. Lu Xiuyuan nodded, completely certain.
I am willing to marry into the Zhang family. In the future, if Yijun and I have children, they shall also take the surname Zhang.
After saying this, he looked at me again.
Yijun, are you willing to marry me?
It wasn't a matter of willingness. Lu Xiuyuan was excellent. He had good looks and a good character. He was a rare catch of a man. Moreover, we knew each other inside out. Even after starting a family, I could still stay in my family's estate, never having to be separated from my parents. Even Song Yan could never give me such a promise, unless I remained unmarried for life. Otherwise, Lu Xiuyuan was indeed my best choice at present. Then, I would marry him. I did not forget to send someone to inform Song Yan of this matter. He sent word back.
Congratulations, my lady. I hope you and your husband will live in perfect harmony.
And he also planned to set off to find his beloved.
Song Yan even said that since we were once husband and wife, on my wedding day, my master will surely come to ask for a cup of wedding wine.
Yijun, you have already given him one last chance. He still failed to remember, so you owe him nothing.
Lu Xiuyuan stood behind me at some point, slowly reaching out to embrace me from behind. He rested his forehead against my shoulder and gently nuzzled against it.
From now on, I am your husband.
On the wedding day, since I was taking in a husband to live with my family, there was no need for me to step into a bridal sedan and leave the house. I only needed to wait at home for Lu Xiuyuan to arrive. My parents made the wedding grand and spectacular. Almost all our relatives and friends came to drink the wedding wine. It was incredibly lively. Naturally, there were many onlookers who loved a good spectacle. Song Yan, as my ex-husband, generously came to the Zhang estate. He even brought several large wooden chests of gold, silver, and jewelry, saying that although our affection for each other had ended,
We were, after all, once husband and wife. He said he came today specifically to deliver these gifts as a small token of his goodwill.
Song Yan was even smiling extremely brightly until Lu Xiuyuan entered the door, surrounded by the crowd as he came to marry me. Song Yan was terribly unlucky. He was actually squeezed into the nearby pond by the crowd. A loud splash of him falling into the water drew the attention of many people present. I couldn't help but look over as well, but mother shook her head at me.
Naturally, the servants and footmen would go to rescue him. The auspicious hour had arrived, and it was time to perform the wedding vows.
So when Song Yan was dragged out of the water by the servants, I had just completed the wedding ceremony with Lu Xiuyuan. At that moment, I wasn't sure if I had misheard, but Song Yan, who was lying on the ground slowly waking up, seemed to say,
Where is my wife?
On the wedding night, Although I was the one taking in a husband, I was, after all, still a woman. Rules forbade me from hosting guests outside the next day. But because of this, I was spared from being urged to drink. Instead, I went to the bridal chamber early to consummate the marriage with Lu Xiuyuan. Lu Xiuyuan rarely wore red. He always wore green robes. Simple, elegant, and noble. But he was so handsome, and with the bright red wedding robes on him, I was momentarily dazed by the sight.
Yijun, I have waited a very long time for this day.
There was an indelible tenderness in Lu Xiuyuan's eyes. He reached out and gently embraced me, and even his voice trembled as he spoke.
From now on, I will never be separated from you.
Then he leaned in to kiss me. But before he could, the room door was violently knocked upon. Song Yan rushed in, looking utterly lost and distraught.
Wife, I've come to save you.
Song Yan barged in, snatched my hand away, feeling both aggrieved and furious.
Those people are so insolent, even though I have already divorced you. And today is your wedding day with someone else. They told me absolutely not to come and bring you bad luck, but you are clearly my wife. My Song Yan's wife.
Have you remembered everything? I stared at him and couldn't help but shake my head. Looking at him now, he had probably remembered most of it, but had completely forgotten about his antics over the past few months.
Wife, did he force you?
Song Yan glared at Lu Xiuyuan and quickly shielded me behind him. Lu Xiuyuan didn't move, only watching him quietly.
Yijun has been very independent since childhood, and her father and mother dote on her dearly. Song Yan, ask yourself, could I really force?
Yijun, so you really don't want me anymore?
It wasn't that I didn't want you. Song Yan's face was pale, the corners of his eyes red, looking as if he was about to burst into tears. It wasn't me who dumped you. I reached out to wipe the tears from the corners of his eyes. Song Yan, it was you who insisted on divorcing me. Then, the servants came in, and without a word, knocked Song Yan unconscious and carried him away. Lu Xiuyuan quickly leaned in close.
Yijun, tonight is our wedding night. We mustn't let anyone else ruin it.
He was very eager to secure his position. I had already performed the wedding ceremony with Lu Xiuyuan. Even though Song Yan had recovered his memory, it was all too late. But Song Yan, whose memory seemed to have fully returned, came to climb through my window the very next day.
Yijun, I remember everything now. I was a fool, forgetting our years of affection as husband and wife, and I did many things that broke your heart. But Lu Xiuyuan, that shameless bastard, I had originally planned to live a good life with you, but he insisted on saying that a person's life is short, and one must spend it with the one they love. Later, he even persuaded me to take you out to buy clothes and jewelry, saying it was to make amends. And that wedding dress, it really had nothing to do with me.
Yawning, I sat up from the daybed. Lu Xiuyuan hugged me from behind, gently nuzzling and sniffing my neck.
Yijun, ignore him, okay?
Hearing the movement inside the room, Song Yan outside the window was burning with anxiety.
Lu Xiuyuan, you dirty dog. It is all your fault. If you hadn't plotted against me, how could my wife have divorced me?
Lu Xiuyuan curled his lip.
Who told you to be so stupid?